feel like this has got to be like an 80s dance, right? This is 80s music.
It's like a boogie.
I feel it. I feel it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Shea Station. It's our second PPP. And today we're talking about a very special player that if you're following the Mets, you're definitely familiar with by now. It's the center fielder, Starling Marte.
Yeah, Starling Marte, you should be familiar, and we're going to get you an even deeper dive on what to anticipate and you might say project one of the P's for the PPP today for Starling Marte.
One of the three P's, that's the big part there. I mean, Starling Marte, this is a signing that pretty much shocked everybody. I don't think anybody saw the Mets as the clear front runner to land this guy on a 4-year, $78 million deal. But, I mean, when it happened amidst a flurry of other signings, and I think that this was the big one that was the exclamation point of that day, of that week.
Happened fast. It came fast. And
like Marte.
That's right. He's a speedy guy. Stole 47 bags last year.
Yeah, crazy.
That is wild. That is, I think you pulled the stat up on it.
It's a pretty funny stat. The Mets stole 54 bases as a team last year, and Marte himself nearly outdid that total just on his own. So that's a big piece of offense that the Mets have not had, not only last season, but for quite a few years now. I really only think of like Jose Reyes and Eric Young Jr. as the stolen base guys that this team has had in recent memory.
It's a new weapon that the Mets haven't had since I've been there.
Yeah.
You know, Jose Reyes of years past. It's something that they just didn't emphasize and didn't care about. It's something that they put the emphasis on last year, and I think they specifically targeted Marte to steal bags. I think they want him to add that to the speed weapon to the Mets. So it's an exciting one. I'm excited. Let's dig in.
Yeah, I mean, so stolen bases are not the only thing that Marte is bringing to the table here. He's been a consistently good offensive player for years and years, and he really is. I think a lot of the older Mets fans are really going to enjoy Marte because he is a pure hitter through and through, always hitting for a high average, in addition to nice OBP and stuff like that. And he has a little bit of pop. It's very sneaky. He hit 12 home runs last year, but he's hit over 20 twice in his career. Always steals a ton of bases, so he's always a threat at the top of the lineup. But his OPS plus last year, 132, 32 ticks above league average. That's pretty sizable considering the Mets team OPS numbers from last year.
He had a wonderful season, and he's at age 32. He'll be going into his age 33 season. So that's where when you talk about that contract, the 4-year, that's a scary prospect for me because you give a guy that many years at that age, and speed is one of the weapons. Speed is one of the first things that go when you get older. Right. It's a finite skill that your body can only do for so long. But he is a physical specimen. He is an absolute freak when it comes to being shredded. So if there's anybody that can do it, it's a guy like that. So we'll see, man. I think they anticipate him being able to do it, but 4 years is a long time to be able to do that.
Yeah, so the contract ends when he's, 36 years old? Not many guys are going to be stealing 20 bases a year at 36.
That's so old.
Yeah, I know, right? Who could be that old? I can't even fathom it. But, I mean, they're getting a great center fielder in this as well. Marte has been an above-average center fielder for so long.
So this is I wanted to talk to you about earlier. Even pre-show, I wanted to get into it, but it slipped my mind. I don't know how to dig into data. This research on this side of the sports aisle is new to me, and I couldn't convince myself that Marte is a plus defender.
Okay, interesting. So I know, we texted about this a little bit. The main one that I use that some listeners may be familiar with is outs above average, because there's kind of different analytics you want to use for each fielder. Like infielders, you might not use that stat as much because it's more of a range stat and stuff like that. You want to see how much an outfielder can cover ground. Marte has been positive for pretty much his entire career, and he's only really played center in his career. A perfect example is Brandon Nimmo, who was negative his entire career up until last year, where he took some really serious steps forward, had, I think, a +2 outs above average in center field. He's probably going to be moving over because Marte's been doing it for 10 years at this point.
Wasn't he in left field when McCutchen was in center?
That's true, yeah, at the start of his career.
He has some experience, which is why I dug into the stat anyway, is because I looked into Nimmo, and I'm like, Nimmo improved, and he said he wants to play center, and he deserves to be heard. And so I looked into the numbers, and I wasn't blown away by what I saw by Marte. For me, I thought right off the top of my head that he was a great defender, and I was like, look, I'll just see some stats that'll be able to back that up, and I didn't find them, probably because I don't know where I'm looking properly, but I wasn't
Well, the thing that I think about a lot with Marte specifically from last season is that he played in the Coliseum and he played at Miami's Park.
The two biggest outfields outside of
Cavernous
Colorado.
outfields, exactly. So that's a tough job, especially when you're the hardest outfield position itself. And I really feel like Marte held his own. I mean, he's by no means a Gold Glover at this point in his career.
Okay.
But I still think that it's a vast range improvement to Nimmo just based on pure sprint speed, which he's always ranked very well in throughout his entire career.
The last thing I kind of forgot about Starling Marte before we dive into the projections and everything is I forgot how much time he spent in the National League.
Yeah.
He was so good with the A's that I was like, oh, he's been there for years. No, he was only spent a half a season in the American League. Most of the time he was in Pittsburgh, Miami, Arizona. But he knows the Mets. He knows the other teams in the division. Everything's going to be familiar to him. So I thought that was an interesting piece.
I did pull up, I found this very interesting as well. He has actually a decent bit of career numbers at Citi Field because, like you said, he's been playing in the National League forever. He's not a great hitter at Citi Field just in general, and I know it's like very different when you're the away team and you don't have time to get used to the ballpark and its dimensions and all that. But a 244 hitter, a 648 OPS, only one home run at Citi Field in his career over nearly 100 plate appearances.
Yeah, but that's because he was facing guys like us.
Of course,
well, not like me specifically. I looked it up. I was curious. I was like, oh, I wonder if I faced him because I knew I'd faced him at least once. Turns out it was only once in Atlanta in 2019, and he hit the first pitch of the at-bat. First pitch of the inning, I faced him, and he hit it about 645 feet out. And so
it's an approximate value.
Yeah, I mean, we'll check the StatCast, but I think that was pretty accurate. So he's got pop, firsthand knowledge of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's sneaky pop for sure. I think he averages about 18 home runs a year over his career, just 12 last year. But I mean, I don't think the Mets need him to be that 20 home run guy because he just changes the top of the lineup for them.
Nor do they want to. His power numbers, his OPS numbers, his slugging percentage is high. And it's not based off of home runs because he doesn't hit that many.
Right.
Which kind of surprised me when we did this deep dive. I feel like he's more of a power hitter, but I like the style that I'm seeing on paper because we have guys in the lineup to do this. So let's get to what he did last year.
Yeah. So I mean, a little bit more on what he did last year. He played in just about 120 games. He's done that 7 of his 10 seasons in his career. 2 of them were his rookie year and his 2020 year where he didn't surpass that benchmark. So he did spend some time injured, but Marte is always going to give you about 500 plate appearances, which is pretty reliable, especially with the guy you're giving a 4-year deal. And this is a big year for him. The first year really sets the tone for a longer contract that goes into the later years of your 30s. So coming out strong in this first year will be very telling of, I think, how the contract will turn out.
I was really interested in the games played because it feels really low. I think that's going to be the template for him to stay healthy because he is older, and I think that's where Nimmo playing center field is going to be a key because they can give him a day off or let him DH and put Nimmo in center, and he more than held his own. He had a good year defensively out there, and he verbally said that he wanted to, and I think the Mets owe it to the kid to chase his dream of being a center fielder, he earned it. He put the work in.
And I don't want this to become a Nimmo episode, but in the same vein, like Nimmo is going to be hitting free agency soon, and like you don't want to make him unhappy right before it. So I think that you can
ultimately Nimmo's a team guy. It's going to be about the team, but I think putting him in center and giving Marte time off is a feasible thing to consider. To make your team better.
And I think it's a win-win, too, because Marte gets the rest that he probably needs at this later stage in his career, and Nimmo gets the confidence back a little bit in himself and also feels the confidence from the front office and the people making decisions about where he's going to play. I think Nimmo will adapt to a corner outfield position, and I think Marte is going to do a good job. But I think splitting that time is important because Nimmo's a young, spry, athletic guy, and that was a nice rhyme. Did you hear that? Spry, athletic guy.
I smirked. You couldn't hear it, but it was there. I was like, okay, I see you over there, Jolly.
So, I mean, the outfield construction is just going to be interesting in general because you also have Canna that can play both right and left, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later. Do you want to get into these next season projections?
Let's do it. Let's look at his projections here.
The 18 home runs stuck out to me because that's falling in line with his career average there. It's a little bit higher, actually. That's more comparatively to his 162 average. The thing that stuck out to me was the batting average here. I mentioned before that Marte is kind of a pure hitter by league standards. He hits for a higher average, which kind of isn't like emphasized as much anymore. But he was a 310 hitter last year, which is an incredibly good number, especially with the league numbers that were coming through early in the season. Not a lot of 300 hitters just anywhere in the league. So I'm curious as to why Fangraphs thinks he might take such a humongous step back in that regard.
I think it's because it it falls into what they're going to try to get him to do. I think they're anticipating him getting a little bit older, but also where he fits in, and they're not going to want him to chase pitches, and so I think that might fall into it. But also his averages. I mean, he's a 289 career, coming down from 310.
Hasn't hit below 280 since 2018.
It's pretty wild. So I like him to continue to be that kind of hitter and that style because he attacks. He doesn't walk hardly at all either. So they're projecting him. So he had, how many walks did he have last year?
Last year he had 43 walks and 520 plate appearances.
That was by far his highest by like 10. So he averages like 30 walks, maybe even less than that. And for a guy that usually either leads off or hits second, that's attack. So we could have Nimmo at the top who takes a ton of walks, and then right behind him have a guy with speed that likes to attack. And so that's an interesting dynamic when you have those two guys at the top, and no matter where you fit, he's going to bat first or second. So.
Right, exactly. And like I know that like we talked a little bit about this before, but the traditional sense of like he steals 47 bags a year, why not just throw him at the top of the lineup? Him and Nimmo achieve different things, but when you put them together side by side, I feel like they kind of enhance each other a little bit because they complement each other's skill sets. Like Nimmo is always an on-base threat, but Marte is always a threat to put the ball in play. And when you have Nimmo on base ready to go, I feel like that's a really good dynamic to set up. We talked a little bit about that in the Lindor episode, how these two guys could be really good table setters for Lindor to continue rallies because he had good numbers with runners in scoring position. So Marte, I think the approach doesn't need to change. I think that he might not be used to not batting leadoff, but I think that he makes for a really good two-hitter that can parlay Nimmo's good on-base numbers into larger innings.
I would be okay with the deeper I think about it because his speed just plays differently. And Nimmo, I think, tried to be a base stealer and it didn't work out. And so he's not going to clog the bases by any means. But if you put Marte at the front, let him get on base, which he does at a high clip, and let him steal bags, and Nimmo gets on base right behind him, there's a lot of double steals there. And Nimmo's fast enough to take Marte's lead. That's a separate skill that he can learn. And I think they could wreak havoc and put a lot of runners in scoring position for the big bats behind him.
Yeah, and like I'm glad you mentioned that Nimmo's not really a traditional stolen base guy. That doesn't mean that Nimmo's not fast.
He is very fast. That's why he's super fast, like sneaky fast. And that's why they kept trying to add that dimension to his game. I just don't think it's in there. It's like a niche skill.
Right.
Niche. What do you think?
I think either, right?
Niche. I think
niche.
Yes on both, but niche sounds better.
Producer Jack.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have questioned it. So it's like being a loogie, being a really good base stealer. It's something that you have to like have in you, ingrained. It's like I got it better. It's like having a good pickoff move.
Okay.
Guys that have really good pickoff moves, it's something that they're passionate about, that they have natural ability for, and sometimes you just can't teach it. And I think his ability to steal bases just never reached him to be able to steal bases at a regular clip, and he's too good to try to make it fit when it doesn't. And so let Marte run.
Marte's been doing it for 10 years, you know what I mean? Like, it's so interesting that speed just doesn't translate that way because there's so much that goes into stealing a base other than just sprinting down to second base. It's getting the right lead, getting the right jump, make sure you're sliding on the right side of the bag. And, like, these are things that are just ingrained into Marte's skill set at this point. So I think Marte might be the only guy in the lineup to steal more than, like, 15 bases on the Mets. I think that's a fair assessment. But he's going to soar past that amount, and it's just going to be such a game changer, especially in the times that, Nimmo can't get on base every single at-bat. It seems like he does.
I think he's going to try to push for that.
The 500 OBP? Yeah, just about. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot to like about Marte. I know many fans are worried about the age and playing center field at that age. And
rightfully so.
Will he slow down because he finally got this big deal? Like, is he still going to go put out that full effort? But I don't worry about that as much because I think Marte – one, wants to make that deep playoff run. He's played in the National League for a long time. He's never really had, I think, a deep championship contending run with a team. He was with those great Pirates teams, but this is something bigger that he's a part of now, and he's really the face of the hitters that we've brought in.
Absolutely is. I feel like with the CBA signing and then the frenzy, his kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
And then when Scherzer signed, like people forgot about Marte. He's a great player. He was the cream of the crop. He's one of the top free agents, and we signed him super quick because they target him. And I think his skill set is solid defense, high on base, high slugging guy, and steal bags, man.
And when he got to the A's, he like changed their outlook for the season. Like when he got there, it was like an instant spark plug.
Absolutely.
So I mean, you're gonna have that for the full.
Catalyst.
I like that.
That was 2 good words.
Niche, catalyst. We're just on top of our freaking game right now.
Oh my gosh.
You want to do our over-unders?
Let's do it. We have a new format. I think this is what we're going to do. So we wanted to do over-unders, keep score, and see how, like at the end of the season, kind of tally how we did.
Yep.
See how much I beat Jolly by. And
it's always a competition.
It is. This is what we do. So he picked a random one that I don't know. I picked a random projection that he's going to pick over under, and I'm also going to pick. And sometimes we're going to have the same, sometimes we're not. And hopefully we have enough different that I come out the winner, or whoever comes out the winner.
I'm just concerned about the content. That's all. I'm not in it to
and
win.
I'm too competitive. And since I retired, it's few and far between.
He needs to find every opportunity he can.
I need a hobby, I think.
All right, you want to go first or no? This was Jerry's idea.
I do want to go first. I do want to go first, and it's going to be a little bit different. So I really thought like stolen base would be an easy one to go for because that's a highlight of his, and it's fun. But I wanted to do something that I think will be a little bit more important to his health and also his impact on our lineup and team ultimately. So I wanted to go with games played.
Okay.
So last year in his best offensive year, best year by far, he only played in 120 games. Now, that was really low to me, so low that I looked it up just to make sure that this wasn't just a fluke, that he got hurt. But what it showed me that this is kind of a trend for him. He averages 128.25 games, and so I think that's a good barometer. So I'm going to set the over-under of games played at 128.5.
Okay.
And I'll let you go first.
So I got to think about this. I find it really interesting that he played all 60 games of the 2020 season. Didn't take a single day off. I think that's pretty interesting there. Compared to other seasons, he had 132 in 2019 and 145 in 2018. So he's been a workhorse before, but that's a few years ago at this point. Only 120 last year. It's still 526 plate appearances. It seems like a lot, but when you miss those 40 games, it kind of blocks out the memory a little bit. You don't remember it as much. So 128, you said?
128.5. So if it's 128, that's the under.
I think the Mets will be cautious with him. I think they'll give him time off even when he's not injured just to protect him. I'm going to take the under. I think he falls somewhere around that 120, 125 range.
I, too, am going to take the under,
okay.
And for a lot of the same reasons that you said. So we're in agreement, which is not rare here at Shea Station.
Shocking.
I think it's for the same reason. I think it's to keep him at his peak, at that high RPM guy, so he could steal bags, and to let other guys get ABs, because this is going to be a deep lineup, and they want to keep guys active because they're looking World Series. And so I think the under, I'm shooting at the 123. I think that's about right where they need to be. And so I'll take the under as well.
And it can still be a productive season.
Absolutely. I think it'll be more productive at that lower level because he'll be so healthy. So we got mine. Now let's see your over-under here.
I did go with your initial idea here on the stolen bases just because it's fun to talk about stolen bases as a Mets fan because it just has not been relevant to us in a long time.
Same page here. I'm proud of you for that one.
So I have it at 40. He stole 47 last year, but it's kind of an outlier compared to the other recent seasons that he's had. 2020 was 10, obviously less games. Year before that was 25. Year before that was 33. He hasn't done over 40 since 2016 other than last season. So I think maybe something in his game changed, or with different teams there was different ideas that those coaches had. But he was definitely more aggressive last year than he has been nearly 5 years prior. So I think I'm going to take the over. I think that side of his game stays the same when he comes to the Mets, especially because they don't steal a lot of bases as a team. They'll probably put a lot of emphasis on it for Marte himself.
You took the over of 40?
I took the over of 40.
I love that. That is so many stolen bases. I've seen it a couple of times. Rajai Davis in Oakland. I saw Ronnie Acuna steal in 2019.
Almost got the 40-40.
Almost got the 40-40. It's so many. I've got to go the under on this. I think a lot of it is going to come down to the Mets are going to be contending, and they're going to need him healthy. And I think they're going to be like, look, let's back it down. Let's not chase a number. And I think 40 is that number that it's just a benchmark. It's pretty to see in the column. And so I'm going to take the under just to be caution and just to play the odds here and also to disagree with you.
That's fair. We got to disagree eventually.
Stolen bases are exciting.
They're fun.
Like, they're fun, and they have been a lost art, really, on a whole for our game, and I think it's been a huge piece that's missing, and I'm so excited to watch this guy play.
Like, people devalue the importance of a stolen base, and there is an argument there, but, like, when I'm watching a game, a stolen base is fun to watch as a baseball viewer. It's an exciting play.
As a pitcher, knowing a guy is a threat to steal a base changes your outlook. It changes your approach. For me, it was very difficult because I'm staring this guy down, I'm reading, and I've got like a win-lose situation at the plate. And so I don't want him to get in a scoring position because I can give up a single and still keep my team, in the hunt. And so when there's a base runner that's a threat, that's a real threat, even if he doesn't steal, the fact that he's thinking about it changes the game. So there's going to be a lot of young guys called up in the big leagues this year. It's also just the way of the world now, and his ability to steal bases, it's going to be in their heads because they're like, watch this guy. They're going to do throwovers. He's going to get free bags when they throw it away. It's just, it's an exciting level of baseball, an exciting element of the game that Mets fans have been missing for a long time. Probably since Jose Reyes in his prime.
There's been no legitimate threat like Jose Reyes since.
A consistent playing speed guy. Yeah, so I'm really super excited because I love that style of baseball, and I hope he gets the over because it's fun, but I believe that I'll come out victorious.
I'm going for the fun factor here,
I respect it. I have integrity of what I really think.
Oh, wow. So pure. Look at that. He's also got the yellow notepad again, and the viewers need to see. It's very official.
I literally tried. So I do it once a month. I try to take notes because I know it's more efficient to do it on the computer, but not the way I do it. And I end up like tangent trying to learn it, and it just doesn't work for me. And so this is the way to organize my thoughts.
Old reliable.
It is old reliable. And there's two things that make me feel old when I'm around 22-year-old Jolly Olive. One is the fact that I have a Yahoo account email, which I got an audible cackle from him. He's like,
"Oh,
old
funny.
guy." And it is. And I'm sticking to my guns on that. Yeah. Producer Jack.
You're a Yahoo guy?
No, he's saying he's agreeing. That's an old guy thing. Yahoo. It's at AOL.com.
Oh,
no. My instant messenger name? No. So that is me, and I'm just owning it. I'm going to keep the Yahoo.
You have to own it.
And this is me, the yellow legal pads. And I feel comfortable, and I have all these pins, and it feels good to write things down. So
you need the contrast. It would be weird if we were both the same in that regard.
A lot of it is, Dear Diary, today Jolly was nice to me.
I'm going to write about the Mets today. Jolly disagreed with me for once.
So... yeah, this is me, so I'm not going to change me. I'll try. I always try to get better. Like, I literally
You're adapting,
tried.
But don't change who you are.
Yeah, the legal pads are me. They're a part of my DNA.
We got philosophical at the end here.
Well, that's what we do. We're deep here.
You got anything else on Marte?
I'm just no, just a pure excitement, just because of, like I said, his style of baseball is really fun to watch, and mixed in with all the other personalities and styles of baseball that are coming to New York. There's so much like vigor. It's just going to be, I'm just so excited to watch the games because we're going to see so many things as a whole that we haven't seen before.
Spark plug.
That's
the one word I'm going to use. Thank you guys for watching. Another one of our PPPs. We'll be back next time with another episode and another player, because that's how the schedule rolls.
Let's go Starling Marte. Let's go Mets.
Let's go 40 stolen bases. Come on, guys. Let's swipe.
I'm for it.
Have some fun. Really. Have some fun.
It is.
Came in a little late. It's okay.
It's all right. Better late than never.